Hello, everybody. Welcome to Relax with Animal Facts. I am Steph Wolf, and I am here to learn some facts with you about our furry, scaly, or possibly even slimy friends, all while relaxing and sometimes going a little bit off topic. So, for any of you new listeners out there, welcome. This is a podcast where I go deep into I'm not going to say too deep. It's more kind of facts and things to get you guys engaged with some animals. But I go online, I find facts from sources that I'm going to cite in just a second, and I talk about an animal that I think is interesting and I would like to learn about. So keep in mind that I'm learning here with you. I'm not any kind of biologist or anything like that. I don't have any fancy degrees. I'm just like you here, learning with you guys. So really quickly, I just want to go over the new schedule for the podcast. So we just passed, I think, 17 episodes. I think this might be the 18th. I think 18th. The show has had its 1 month anniversary here just a few days ago. I think 3 or 4 days ago. So that means that I was uploading close to four and a half or 4 times a week, which is at this point in time incredibly difficult. So what I'm going to do is make a solid schedule. The podcasts are going to be on a bi-weekly basis on Monday. You guys love to listen on Mondays and on Friday as well. So get your podcast for the week and a podcast for the weekend, and that way you don't have to wonder, hey, when's Steph gonna release a new podcast? You'll know Mondays and Fridays, bright and early. It's going to be, I think, the release date. I'm not sure when I'll make it. I'll make it either from 6 to 8 a.m. EST. So for any of you out there wondering, what is this guy's schedule? Now you know, and it'll also be posted on the podcast description, anyways. So, and another very important thing that I would like to talk about really quickly is your guys' engagement. So now that we have a good amount of you guys out there, I've already had a couple of you reach out and write into the show and tell me what you would like to hear on the podcast. And the next podcast is actually going to be from a fan submission. And just when you guys write in, just make sure to tell me if you're okay with me saying your first name on the podcast, because otherwise, if I don't want to say your name if you don't want it to be said on the podcast. So if you want to write into the show, you can send an email to relaxwithanimalfacts@gmail.com, and you can send me, you can send any comments or anything about the show. Maybe you'd like to let me know something, and then you can also tell me what do you want to hear? What do you want to listen about on the podcast? And communicate back and forth. And that's what I love is the real engagement with you guys out there listening, because now we're all part of this. We're all part of this thing where now it's going to be bi-weekly, on a bi-weekly basis, where we come and we learn together. So your engagement and your passion about animals is what makes this podcast incredibly enjoyable for me. Not just that, but also that you guys get to relax at the same time. So if you want to write into the show, send me an email and just let me know what you would like to hear about, maybe any comments or anything about the show. And if you're okay with me saying your first name, not your last name, unless you, I guess, specifically request it, but your name on the show, to kind of dedicate the show that I'm doing to the person that wrote in. And so for any of you new listeners out there, you guys that have already been listening know already how you like to listen to the podcast, but it's totally up to you. You might be, this might be the middle of the day and you just want something to listen to as you kind of walk around. Maybe you're stopping for a coffee, maybe you're driving in traffic or just to work, whatnot, or maybe you're just at home about to go to sleep. However you want to listen to this podcast, find somewhere comfy, or you can be completely attentive. You can space in and out. How you listen really doesn't matter. I am here with you for the next half an hour, and if you want me to be here for the next however long, 18 episodes times half an hour, right? For a long time, if you'd like, you can just keep going through them. We have so many awesome podcasts on the show already. So however you want to listen to this podcast is completely encouraged and up to you. So I'm going to go over the sources that I got for this episode, and this is the Newt episode. I don't think I even said that yet, but this is the Newt episode. and we'll get into what those actually are in just a second. You might not be very familiar with newts, or you might be. So I got my sources this time from livescience.com and onekindplanet.org. Live Science or Live Science, I've got stuff from them countless times. Onekindplanet.org, I think, is a new one, so we'll see how that goes. So, newts. They are small semi-aquatic amphibians that resemble a cross between a lizard and a frog. I'm looking at a picture of these little guys right now, and they have a sort of darkish red color, if you can imagine. So first you got to imagine between a lizard and a frog, a cross between those two. They have a darkish red color along the top, and they have some orange on the underside of their limbs. So sort of this gradient happening there. And they have those same frog-shaped eyes. If you've seen frogs before, they have their pupils are almost sort of rectangular shaped, and the newt isn't an exception to that. They also have that frog-shaped sort of pupil. So it's really interesting. So these guys are pretty cute, in terms of a general appearance. They look very friendly and happy there. They are members. So let's talk taxonomy for a second. Newts are members of the, you're going to have to bear with me on this one, Salamandridae, there we go, family, of which there are over 60 species. So it's part of a pretty large family. And this means that all newts are salamanders, but not all salamanders are newts. The taxonomy can sometimes be a little bit confusing for people because there's so many different subsections, like the kingdom, and then you go all the way down, with the species and the families and all that kind of stuff. Like there's a lot of sort of classifications that are absolutely necessary because of the fact that we have so many animals that are discovered and, as you may well know, undiscovered, right? We're discovering new species all the time, especially in the ocean. In the ocean, it's a total gold mine for undiscovered species. But here on land, it's even the same sort of deal. So they are salamanders. And there's not too many differences between newts and salamanders, but there are a few. So, for example, on average, newts spend more of their adult lives in the water than salamanders do, and that's on average. Of course, this will vary depending on habitat and individual behavior. So, on average. There are more differences between the female and male populations in newts rather than in salamanders. What that means is that basically if you were to look at a female and look at a male, it's going to be harder to tell the difference in salamanders than it would be in newts. So for example, the newt that I just described to you with those different sort of colors, the female newt, I'm looking at a picture right now, they don't even look almost like the same species. It's really interesting. Totally different color pattern. They look spotted. They look sort of, I guess it depends on the species, but you can really, really tell the difference between them, between the males and the females. With salamanders, I guess it's harder. So the main difference between these guys is how they are classified or their taxonomy. So enough about salamanders and newts, where this isn't the salamander episode, this is the newt episode. So they have lizard-shaped bodies with 4 legs and long tails. Long tails is relative to their proportions, to their body size. Most have smooth and that moist skin, so something that you would expect from a semi-aquatic amphibian. Though some species, such as rough-skinned newts in this case, so they don't have the smooth and moist skin, or more of the smooth, so they have rough skin. As one might expect, they have that grainy sort of roughness. When I think of something that's rough and grainy, I think of almost kind of like sandpaper. So most species have well-developed lungs, while some retain gills and are completely aquatic. So it varies among the different subspecies of newts. While some of them are more adapted to live a semi-aquatic life, there are ones that retain the ability to just be 100% aquatic. And it didn't really say where rough-skinned newts live in comparison, or I assume they live in the same kind of environment, but the reason that evolution prefers them to retain gills and remain completely aquatic must be some sort of adaptation to something, right? And they come in all different sizes. So typically they're smaller than 8 inches. So these guys are decently small. And for example, the warty newt, it's a good name, they grow to 7 inches and weigh about 0.22 to 0.37 ounces. If you're not familiar with ounces, I converted that for you guys. It's about 6.3 to 10.6 grams. So fairly light in comparison to some of the, the elephant, the 13,500 pound, huge animal. Now we're going back to 6.5 to 10.5 grams, right? So totally different. And it's a breath of fresh air for me because we've done so many of these large, gentle giants, and having this sort of contrast is really cool. So they are found all over the northern hemisphere in North America, Europe, Asia, and North Africa as well. So these guys they're fairly spread out, which is good because that not only helps them to have different adaptations to different environments. While the environments may be similar, there's always slight differences. But not only that, because they are spread out like that, when they have maybe habitat loss in one area, there's always somewhere else to thrive. So some live on land while others live almost exclusively in water, like we just covered. The alligator newt, super cool, for example, lives on the southern islands of Japan, in swamps, forests, grasslands, and croplands. So these guys have a good amount of range. The eastern red-spotted newt is found in eastern North America in ponds, lakes, and marshes. So many newts are fairly active during the daytime, while others are active during the night. And if you guys remember what that term means, when you have a species that is active during the night, the word is nocturnal for that. So it's interesting that that newts differ individually in this way. I think almost all the animals that we've covered have a sort of very similar behaviors across all individuals in a population, rather than having these sort of slight differences between them. So although there are different subspecies, generally speaking, the subspecies are to do with maybe where they live. Maybe there's a different sort of not so much anatomical difference, but a physical difference, like physical characteristics. You'll have different color, you'll have things like that. But we're seeing different habit patterns from different newts, which is cool, but it's not something that we've covered a lot in the show. We haven't had animals that differ like this too often. So now getting to the single most interesting part of newts, at least to me. So newts have this regeneration ability that I'm sure some of you may have heard about, that some animals have this. So they can regenerate limbs, eyes, spinal cords, hearts, intestines, upper and lower jaws. So of course scientists looked at this and said, wow, what can we do to figure out how this works, and maybe even apply it to the human population? Because if you can imagine, if we had genes and proteins in a system that is able to regenerate limbs and really go, because if you think about it, human beings, our bodies are incredible, but we are also decently fragile when you really put it in the big picture in comparison to many other animals that, especially that we've gone over on this show. If you can imagine regenerating eyes and regenerating spinal cords, for God's sakes, right? So spinal cords in humans are so complex. There's so many things going on. If you've ever actually seen a picture of what the spinal cord looks like, it's almost like horsehair in a way. And there's so many different connections that are happening that I cannot imagine this regeneration being applied to humans. It's something that really is beyond my understanding there. So they've been extensively studied to this day for us to better understand how this happens. So this is pretty much a superpower. I'm sure there are superheroes out there right now in media and whatnot that have the ability to regenerate limbs and whatnot. But newts, living superheroes here. So for the benefit of giving humans the ability to regenerate limbs, as we just talked about, Human beings have an amazing regenerative ability when it comes to things that are lesions, that are wounds, and things like that. So we can really come back from those minor abrasions and whatnot, but we can't regenerate the entire limbs, and this would be incredibly useful for many things. So with newts, they can seamlessly regenerate any damaged tissues, and researchers from the University of, I'm going to try this my best, so it's in Japan, it's the University of Tsukuba, and the University of Dayton as well in the United States, and they were able to isolate what they suspected was the reason for this superpower that they have, and they broke it down into 2 different cell types that are responsible for this: skeletal muscle fiber cells and muscle stem cells, or there's another word for it, progenitor cells. I don't know if I said that right, but these stem cells can be triggered to transform into muscle fiber cells with the right stimuli. Let's do a quick breakdown of stem cells, just so this makes a little bit more sense. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm just going to do a quick brief overview. This isn't biology class, but it'll help with the understanding. So stem cells are things that human beings have. This isn't something that only newts have, just they seem to have this incredible ability to use them in this way. So we have stem cell therapies here in North America. I'm sure you've heard of it before as this sort of miracle thing, and in a way it is. So stem cells are things that we have that are reserve cells. So they remain what they describe as incompletely differentiated. Differentiated just means that cells have specific roles, they have specific functions, right? They're specialized for a certain thing. Like liver cells do things with the liver. They don't go and do something with the kidney, right? So stem cells don't have this assignment, but rather they're waiting for this sort of assignment of function, and different stem cells can be applied to different sorts of things. So in the case of newts, they have these reserve cells, and they're able to regenerate limbs seamlessly using these cells. So by better understanding how they use their skeletal muscle fiber cells and muscle stem cells, their bodies use it rather, because I don't think they're thinking, okay, stem cells go do something, but seeing how their body works and maybe finding a way to apply it in humans would help us have either a faster regeneration rate when it comes to things like minor abrasions, like wounds and different sorts of things. Not only that, but maybe it would help regenerate limbs, and that's what they had in mind. But so far as I know, no one's regenerating limbs just yet. I'm not sure if it'll be applied to humans or if it can be applied to humans. Some things are just, I guess, just for the newt. So let's move on here, okay? So we're getting past biology class now. Let's get more into the newt here. So the great crested newt, which is Britain's largest amphibian, which is interesting. They can grow twice as large as other newts. So we're talking up to 18 centimeters long. So yeah, about twice as long. And they live up to 15 years. So 15 years. We've covered some larger mid-range animals that live to be about 15 years. So these smaller guys also can live up to 15 years. In the mating season, this particular newt will develop a large wavy crest down their backs, and not to mention a very elaborate courtship display. So this crest serves, whenever you see these kind of physical characteristics that don't seem to serve a function when it comes to anything like with swimming, because these guys are semi-aquatic, or something, maybe to do with getting food. It has almost always something to do with mating, whether it's interpersonal conflicts between males or just wooing a female. So it involves a male. I watched a video of this. It involves a male standing on his front legs in front of a female, having this sort of arched back while he waves his tail and his crest around. So dancing, we see, is a thing that is shared among many animals, which is awesome, and it could be why humans love dancing so much as well. Although we don't usually do it to woo a female so much anymore at this day and age. But the crested newt, great crested newt, absolutely will do this interesting dance. So female newts lay one egg at a time on a specially selected piece of pond plant. So she'll sniff the leaf to make sure it has the right amount of cellulose, and then she will Well, cellulose, just in case anybody doesn't know, it's kind of the main thing that's found in plant cell walls, and it will help the plant be really strong and stiff as well. So she looks for the right amount of cellulose on these plants, and she will lay an egg and close the leaf around it with her back legs to glue it shut. So she makes this sort of interesting pod for the babies to be, grown in. And this is an adaptation, seemingly because how are predators going to know where, eggs are if they're sort of hidden in a leaf, right? It's a really good way to hide your young. The newt's not only cute, but these guys are predators as well. So they're predators of other pond animals. So after breeding, newts will come out of the water, I guess the ones that don't remain fully aquatic, and they will travel up to 1 kilometer to look for worms and beetles and whatnot, those sort of insects, right, and other sorts of things. So they will live in those damp habitats, as we explained before, on land. So when they are on land, they prefer those damp habitats because they have that moist skin, and they like to live in habitats like that. And newts actually hibernate. So in wintertime, usually underneath logs and stones and in rubble piles, while some individuals, the one that remain fully aquatic usually, they will occasionally spend the winter in the bottom of the ponds. They're not the only ones that do this. I think that there are some small frogs that do this as well. Not completely sure. Maybe we'll cover some more on a future podcast. So they do have predators, mostly of young newts and eggs, but also some adult newts. So that'll include things like fish and foxes, grass snakes, herons. Herons is a very, a large bird in comparison to other birds, if you don't know what heron is. But those are actually a cool guy to cover on a future podcast. But they do have predators. So while they are predators themselves, newts of other pond animals, of course, they aren't at exactly the top of the food chain. Many newts produce toxins, which makes them not a very good thing to eat. And that's what they say, is to never eat these guys, because it's not like they can squirt the toxins out or bite you or anything, but you never want to eat them, especially, if you're out camping and you want to find something to eat, or if you're stuck in the forest, don't eat a newt. The rough-skinned newt specifically, we already talked about them before, but some newts are so poisonous that they actually have enough toxins to kill a room full of adult humans. And I think it's with mice, it's in the tens of thousands, I think, when it comes to mice. So don't eat these little guys. They're not. I'm sure they wouldn't be tasty, and they're not very good for you. They're not very nutritious there. So don't eat these guys. So that's the last of our facts about the little newt today. That was a really fun little semi-aquatic animal, and we'll talk about the origin, I guess, of newt. Again, this was a tough one to find. Newt, there wasn't any kind of story. It just said that the name Newt is a boy's name of English origin, meaning a small salamander. And that doesn't really sound like the origin of the name Newt for the lizard, but rather Newt as a actual human boy's name that was originating from the newt, which is a small salamander. So I don't really know, but there wasn't any kind of specific information as to where that came from for the animal, not human beings. But anyways, so now we've reached the end of our show, and just to remind you guys, engagement is really what I love on the show. So if you want to listen to a specific animal that maybe is your favorite that I haven't talked about already, send me an email at relaxwithanimalfacts@gmail.com, and I'm sure many other listeners here, part of our RWAF family here, would love to hear what your favorite animal is and some cool facts about them. So your opinion matters, guys. If you want to send me an email, you always could. And that's about all I have to say at the end of the show here. So thank you all for tuning in. If you're awake or attentive or whatnot, I will see you on the next episode with the next animal, possibly from you guys. Take care.